Liona and Zhiyu safely reunite with Elijah and return to the Du family's residence in Aurous Hill. Watching from afar, Charlie plans a 2-day break before Sara Gu's upcoming concert. Unaware of their survival, Jufe prepares a lavish publicity campaign to woo Sara. When Elijah calls to announce their return, Jufe realizes their survival weakens his leverage to inherit the Su family. Jufe secretly reports the news to a panicked Changfeng, who orders him to investigate immediately. Dear follower, your support keeps us motivated. Thank you.
Chapter 2751. At this time, Liona and Zhiyu cautiously hid in the dry ditch by the roadside, waiting for the arrival of their families. Soon, 2 white lights appeared at the end of the road, and the commercial vehicle driven by Renel had already moved toward the location. Elijah hurriedly called Liona and said to her, "Liona, have seen our car." Liona said, "Dad, I can see a car, about 500 or 600 meters away, but I'm not sure if it is yours." Elijah said in a convenient way, "I let your big brother flash the high beam twice." When Renel heard this, he quickly flashed 2 high beams. Liona walked out of the ditch at this time and waved her hand at the vehicle on the small road. Renel in the co-pilot saw her at a glance, and said excitedly, "It's Liona, go there." Renel kicked the accelerator and the commercial vehicle drove over quickly. Immediately afterward, the car stopped beside Liona, and as soon as it stopped, the 3 doors of the main driver, co-pilot, and the rear seat opened at the same time. Elijah, Renel, and Simon quickly got out of the car. When Elijah saw Liona, he couldn't control his emotions and choked up. "Liona, you and Zhiyu have been missing during this period of time, and your dad is almost worried to death." Liona also burst into tears, stepped forward, and hugged her father, crying and said, "Dad, I'm sorry, I worried you." At this time, Zhiyu also came to Liona, gently grasped Elijah's arm, and sobbed, "Grandpa." Elijah hurriedly hugged Zhiyu lightly, and said excitedly, "Good girl, it's okay if you're fine, it's fine." Zhiyu looked at Renel and Simon again, choked with sobs, "Uncle, uncle, we made you worry." Renel hurriedly said, "Silly girl, what are you talking about? You and your mother are fine, even if your uncle threw it in for half my life." Elijah couldn't help but ask the question he most wanted to ask at this time, "Liona, where were you and Zhiyu during this time? Who saved you?" Liona sighed and said sincerely, "Dad, this matter is really a long story. I won't know where to start for a while." Simon said at this time, "Dad, I think we should get in the car and go home first. If we have anything to say on the road, we will go home and continue talking. If we don't finish talking on the road, it is going to take a long while." "Yes, yes, yes," Elijah said hurriedly, "let's talk in the car." With that said, he took the initiative to open the rear door of the commercial vehicle and said to the mother and daughter, "Get in the car, let's go home first." Liona nodded and hurriedly said, "Dad, you go first." Elijah pushed her gently and said, "You go with Zhiyu first." Seeing this, Liona didn't insist anymore, pulling Zhiyu into the car first. Immediately after Elijah got in the car, and Renel drove away. Seeing the commercial car go further and further away, Issac in the dark breathed a sigh of relief, took out his mobile phone to call Charlie, and said, "Master, the ladies have already met their family." Charlie breathed a sigh of relief on the other end of the phone, and said, "In this case, you should also go home." After speaking, Charlie said again, "Mr. Issac, you have worked hard from yesterday to now. Take a good rest these 2 days." Issac smiled slightly and said, "I just followed you for a lap in Syria, and I am not tired at all. It's you, Master, don't mind that I bothered you for these 2 days." Charlie smiled and said, "So I also plan to take a 2-day rest." Issac hurriedly said, "Master, it seems that your birthday is also approaching. Do you have any plans?" Charlie hummed, and said, "Don't have anything special about the birthday. Just that day, Sara will over to have a concert. I will accompany my wife to the concert, as it is a birthday celebration." Throughout Aurous Hill, there are many people who are thinking about Sara's concert. Among them, the eldest master of the Su family, Jufe, is the most eager. At this time, Jufe did not know the news that his mother and sister are safe. He was still at the Aurous Hill Olympic Center and was constantly communicating with the venue members about the small details of the concert. In fact, his company is just the sponsor of Sara's concert. Generally speaking, this kind of sponsor only needs to pay for it. The real performance scheduling, stage construction, and promotional materials are all matters of Sara's own management company. He has no relationship with half a dime. However, he quietly reached a cooperation with the venue staff. They clearly leased the venue to Sara's agency for the concert. However, Jufe had already bought it back by spending his own money. Prepare it as all surprises for Sara everywhere in the venue. Jufe tried his best to pursue her. Originally, he wanted to directly buy all the advertising spaces in Shangri-La, but Issac refused. So he reached a cooperation with the venue and directly rented all the billboards here, including several large LED advertising screens outside the venue, which he quietly rented. On the day of Sara's concert, these advertising screens will display courtship posters carefully prepared by Jufe. In addition, he also specially customized tens of thousands of lucky bags, which contained glow sticks, light signs, and T-shirts, especially for Sara's support. These are all made by Jufe from the best manufacturer. In addition to these items to be used in the lucky bag, there is also a color poster. The content printed on the poster is consistent with the courtship poster that he wants to put on the big screen. However, he did not reveal his name in the courtship poster. He signed himself in the poster as Mr. S, who loved Sara. The letter S is naturally the first letter of Jufe's surname. He believed that when Sara sees the content of the courtship poster, she would be able to guess that he did it, but other people would definitely not think of him. In this way, he would be able to confess to her under the witness of thousands of people, but at the same time he would not reveal his identity, so he could kill two birds with one stone. Moreover, he felt that he took such pains to express his love to Sara in such a grand manner, Sara would definitely be moved by then. What's more interesting is that in order to cause a sensation, Jufe specially prepared millions of cash, according to the ticket price of each seat of the concert, put the corresponding cash into this seat. In a lucky bag. This is a way for him to please Sara's fans. In his opinion, he passed, and tens of thousands of spectators showed their love to Sara. Naturally, it would not arouse the disgust of these spectators. So in his opinion, spending money is the best solution. Anyway, he will reimburse them for the money they spend to watch the concert. He will woo the goddess through the concert. What can they say? This kind of behavior, in the eyes of others, may not be any different from being taken advantage of, but to Jufe, this amount of money is not even AF at RT. After so much preparation, Jufe still felt that it was not enough. He instructed his assistant, "By the way, I must find the marketing team when the time comes. When the concert audience starts to enter the venue, I will make this a hot topic. It must be published on Weibo and short video platforms. It must take the top spot on the platform." The assistant said without hesitation, "Master, don't worry, buying hot searches and hot topics are familiar to our team. It's nothing more than spending a little money. I will help you realize it. When the time comes." Jufe nodded in satisfaction and smiled longingly. At that time, this mysterious Mr. S will definitely become a hot spot for discussion on the whole network. Speaking of this, he suddenly had an idea and blurted out, "By the way, you have to call a prize-winning event at that time. Under this hot topic, users who support and encourage Mr. S will have the chance to participate in the lucky draw." The assistant hurriedly asked, "Master, how do you set the prizes for the lottery?" Jufe smiled and said, "Since I want to have fun with the people, I have to be more generous, so let me draw a first prize, 2 second prizes, 3 third prizes, and the first prize. It is a Rolls-Royce Phantom, the second prize is a Bentley Mulsanne, the third prize is a Mercedes-Benz G-Class." The assistant exclaimed, "Master, your drawing is too big. As far as I know, the biggest prize in the online lottery has not exceeded 1 million. Jufe laughed and said triumphantly, "It's just to be big. What a person is 10,000 in cash and tens of hundreds of money, this is too boring, small, not enough to force the topic to the hottest. So we directly draw tens of millions of luxury cars, and there are 6 in one draw. At that time, the draw time will be extended a bit, 1 month. This month is enough to stir up the heat." The assistant quickly agreed and said, "Okay, master, I will let the notary department come out for notarization at that time to ensure that the activity is true and effective, so that netizens can participate boldly and confidently." "Okay." Jufe nodded in satisfaction, and said, This matter is left to you. We must fire up the heat to the extreme. In addition, I will recruit a large number of PR people and push hands to let them send me a soft article on the internet. The assistant hurriedly asked, Master, do you have a designated category and direction for the advertisement? Of course. Jufe smiled. Be sure to find me those famous influencers, internet celebrities, and opinion leaders who are very famous in marriage and love, and it is best to choose more women. Tell them that when writing soft articles, the tone must be crazy envious of Sara's care and love for a man with such a heart. At the same time, she must express his envy for Sara and his love for Mr. S, and create Mr. S's personality of a peerless good man. The assistant was also a little excited said, when the time comes, I will strengthen a few people to label the mysterious Mr. S, who is infatuated, affectionate, hardworking, and rich. You will definitely become the national hero who is putting the girls crazy and obsessed all over the country. Jufe said with a smile. The gold content of the two words, national hero, is really too low. These days, all kinds of cats and dogs dare to claim to be national heroes. I still don't want to grab this title. The assistant thought that he had hit the horse's leg with a flattery, and hurriedly changed his words. Yes, yes, you, as the young master, can you be compared to those so-called national heroes? By the way, master, Miss Sara's fans give her a nickname, Little Girl, so Miss Zhiyu is a national girl, then you will naturally be a national boy. Ha ha ha. Jufe nodded repeatedly and said happily, National boy, not bad, I like this title. As he was talking, his cell phone rang suddenly. It was his grandfather Elijah who called. Jufe felt a little big head. He knew that his grandfather had been desperately looking for the whereabouts of his mother and sister during this period. Delay him. In fact, Jufe has been completely enlightened since talking with his father Zin. He is not very interested in finding his mother and sister, because he knows that the best situation right now is that his grandfather's reputation is completely ruined and he has to push his father's into the stage. Moreover, because of the mother and younger sister's affairs, Grandpa feels more or less guilty for him and his father, so it is very likely that he will inherit the Su family in the future. In this case, he really has no motivation to find his mother and sister. However, he didn't dare answer his grandpa's call, so he had no choice but to answer it. When he was about to ask Grandpa what was going on, Elijah on the other side of the phone asked, Jufe, where are you now? Jufe hurriedly said, Grandpa, I'm talking about business, what's the matter? Do you need me for anything? Elijah blurted out, come home, your mother and your sister are back. Jufe's entire body became dull as soon as he heard these words. For more than 10 seconds, he was unconscious. Jufe, are you listening to me? Elijah, on the other end of the line, couldn't help but ask when he didn't respond. I'm listening, Grandpa, you said Mother and Zhiyu are back. Jufe exclaimed. Really? He hardly asked. Of course, exclaims the speaker. Can I still make a joke with this kind of thing? Elijah asked solemnly. Please return soon. Okay, Grandpa, I'll come back now. Jufe hurriedly said. You stay and continue to connect with the people on the PR side, he told the assistant as he hung up the phone after speaking. First and foremost, I must leave now. He dashed out as soon as the voice faded. Jufe hurriedly wanted to start the car while sitting in it, but he suddenly hesitated. For dozens of seconds, his entire body was still, and he felt extremely perplexed and contradictory in his mind. He had no idea whether his mother and sister had returned safely at this point, or whether this was a good or bad thing. To be honest, he has always had a wonderful relationship with his mother and sister, and he was sometimes overjoyed. But there was another uncontrollable thought in his mind. Jufe. The thought was telling him, returning with your mother and sister is certainly not a good idea. Remember your grandfather, the old man who is addicted to money and influence, and the explanation for the gifts he now offers you and your father. In the end, he is doing well and showing vulnerability to you because he is now notorious and feels guilty. If your mother and sister return safely and seem to be in good health, the world's scorn for your grandfather will be relieved. After all, there's a big difference between someone who is dead and someone who isn't. Once the two of them return safely, the spit and rage directed at your grandfather will inevitably dissipate, and they will even be forgotten over time. In that case, your grandfather will be able to regain the public's interest and reasonably recover the Su family patriarch's identity. At that point, you and your father will once again be his two orphaned sons. Moreover, at that point, he will no longer feel responsible for you and your father. You and your father will lose all of your advantages as well. More importantly, because they fled at your grandfather's hands, your mother and sister will never forgive your grandfather in this life, and they will even freely turn their faces with your grandfather, or even turn their faces toward you. What will you do at that point? Your grandfather no longer feels responsible for you, and your mother and sister view him as an adversary, engaging in various confrontations with him or openly attacking him. You will undoubtedly be implicated at that moment. No one will give the patriarchship to the enemy's son, the enemy's brother. Jufe got irritated just thinking about it. It was also at this point that his heart's balance moved slightly. As a result, he unconsciously took out his phone and dialed Changfeng's number, who was worried about Xin's whereabouts. At the time, Changfeng was gloomy. Xin, his eldest son, has been missing for more than 12 hours after he went missing in the morning. He didn't find any useful hints in those 12 hours. Xin, like his younger brother Xiao, seemed to vanish from the face of the earth. Although the Wade family was suspicious, Xin was self-defeating in that he gave the Wade family a good excuse to throw the pot, so he did not dare to push the Wade family any further. Jufe called at this precise moment. Jufe, have you found a hint to your father? He asked, a little irritably on the phone. Jufe was taken aback and asked, Grandpa, what are you talking about? Are you looking for details about your father? What's the matter with father? Changfeng only realized this after Xin's crash, when he realized he hadn't been aware of Jufe for the whole day. As a result, even though Jufe was in Aurous Hill, he was unaware that his father had vanished. Jufe, there is bad news, your father is missing, he sighed. What are you talking about? Jufe was taken aback and exclaimed. Grandpa, what do you mean? My father is fine, why would he suddenly vanish? I'm not sure. Your father concealed his identity and lived peacefully in Shangri-La in Aurous Hill. Changfeng said frankly. He planned to find an opportunity to meet Ito Takehiko of the Ito family, but there is no news since this morning. All of his men have disappeared. Ah, says the voice. Jufe had black spots in front of his eyes, dizziness in his head, and was on the verge of collapsing. How could this be? Jufe muttered incoherently to himself. The whole thing is really weird, Changfeng said helplessly. I haven't yet discovered any useful information. However, I believe it has a lot to do with the disappearance of your second uncle. It's possible that it was done by the same guy. There should be some kind of connection with the Wade family as well. After all, your father was injured in the Wade family's hotel, and Aurous Hill is the Wade family's domain. Grandpa, could it be the Wade family? Jufe hurriedly inquired. He was still with him when the second uncle had an accident, and the other party might get the second uncle away under Master Luther's nose. Wade's family shouldn't have such a master, right? I remember thinking, hey, this is something I haven't worked out yet, Changfeng sighed. It appears to be inextricably linked to the Wade family, but when you think about it, the Wade family doesn't seem to merit such strength. However, I have sent someone to look for it, he said again after speaking. I'll go to any extent to find clues. In Aurous Hill, you will eagerly await my news. You can also inquire there if you have any sources. Look for any noteworthy hints. All right. Jufe was annoyed and grudgingly agreed. I have a headache, so I won't talk to you anymore, Changfeng said again at this point. I'll keep you informed of any developments. Okay Grandpa, then you first have a nice rest and take care of your body. Jufe murmured absently. He quickly recalled what Grandpa had said and hurriedly said, Grandpa, don't hang up the phone. As he spoke, what's the matter? Changfeng inquired. Are you all right? My grandfather just called me, and he said that mother and sister have returned. Jufe hurriedly said, what are you talking about? Changfeng burst with joy and shouted. Your mother and sister are back. What exactly do you mean when you say they are returning? How did they get back? Where were they? Grandfather didn't say anything specific, but they were in Aurous Hill, Jufe hurriedly explained. They just called and asked him to pick them up right away. Mother and Zhiyu should probably have gone back to Du's old house in Aurous Hill. How is this possible? Changfeng screamed, turning up the stormy sea in his heart. How in the world is this even possible? Jufe, where are you now? He hurriedly inquired. I am at the Aurous Hill Olympic Center, and I am going back to the old house to take a look. Jufe hurriedly said. Go, exclaimed Changfeng. Check out what's going on.